And now we bring you the papers this morning. Let's go through the front pages of the national dailies, starting off with the Daily Independent. On the front page of the Daily Independent this morning, the big story says, it's time Nigeria moved from reforms to results. And this is, of course, said by the World Bank. I think we all agree that a lot of this talk and all these things that they are planning to do is all starting to sound like motivational aspire to perspire. We want to start seeing results. The World Bank went further to say that it must ensure coordinated fiscal monetary policy actions. That is, of course, what the World Bank is saying, and that's the update this morning. We've not made progress. Life is difficult. APC chieftain tells leaders, alerts on a rebellion against party in 2027. And that's what we're seeing there. Still on the front page, on page 7, federal government assures aircraft leasing companies guarantee of assets. Sanwo-Olu presents 2.246 trillion naira budget to Lagos Assembly. It should improve lives of Lagos residents, Obasa tells governor. Don't tarnish image of judiciary, CGN warns federal high court judges. That's on page 6. CBN assures on addressing naira scarcity. Labour kicks against planned restructuring of TCN. ASU upbeat as FEC OK's exit of varsities and polytechnics from IPPS. Tinubu sacks FAN, that's FAAN, NAMA, and other MDs announcing replacements. PDP commences plan to declare 25 Rivers Assembly seats vacant. Rivers Speaker declares seat of 25 defected lawmakers vacant. And this is a story we looked in depth into in the first half of the show. The final story here says, crude oil production price benchmark for 2024 budget is realistic according to the NNPC. They pledge to maintain level of dividends projected in MTEV. I want us to also quickly just look at the story about ASU. ASU upbeat as FEC OK's varsities polytechnics exit from IPPIS. Now, if you remember, Osarogie, this was the bane of the ASU strike last year. How we talked about this for months. One of the conversations, they talked about the payment of salaries, non-payment of salaries, that adequate amount wasn't given to, is it on the budget? They were talking about the allocation to education on the budget, payment of salaries, and more importantly, they were talking about IPPIS. In fact, a number of people argued at the time that these lecturers were sticking so strongly to their resolve not to be on IPPIS for several reasons. The result or the excuse or the reason, let me put it that way, that the federal government gave for leaving them on IPPIS was because they wanted to get rid of ghost workers, those who were earning multiple salaries, so it was a unified way of being able to measure their salary. And my question is, if they knew that they could have allowed them exit IPPIS all this while, because it looks like it was an impossible task, why now? Why did they allow students suffer, stay at home for months? Why did they allow the the tertiary education structure to crumble so badly before this happened? So this was an option on the table because I thought it was a non-negotiable.
So ASU was pushing for UTAS, I think that's what it's called, to move from IPPIS to UTAS. Because they said that the UTAS payment system was a lot more convenient for university lecturers, and it accommodated a lot more of what their experiences were as lecturers and all that. So but why the Buhari government didn't, nobody knows. I think the Buhari government also wasn't a very wasn't the government that was very good with finding the middle ground with these negotiations. There's almost no strike that happened in that period, in those 8 years of Buhari administration, that ended up with us moving forward. It always would end in a stalemate, not with Labour, not with the NLC, not with ASU, not with any other body, not with NARD, NMA, everybody who went on strike. None of them ever got any positive result from the Buhari administration that, that meant that, yes, now we're moving forward. They would always come to some agreement, promises will be made, and it falls by the wayside. 3 weeks later, they start threatening to go back on strike. So maybe that administration wasn't very, good with negotiation and having middle ground with these issues across the country. The current administration might seem like they have more of a listening ear to some of these concerns that bodies have. And that's the thing with governance. sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to be the favorite option of the government, but you have to find a middle ground, you know, because
must be
these are
compromise.
exactly civil service. These are people who, you know what works best for them. Find the middle ground. You can't bully everybody into silence. You can't, you know, bribe everybody into silence either. So that's maybe what we are seeing here. You know, ASU, of course, would continue. But I hope that they also remember that some of the reasons for their strike was not just IPPIS and UTAS.
Yes, it wasn't just
It was
that.
also
Payment
improvement
of
on the
salaries,
education,
the quality of
quality of education and
yes.
investment in education across the country. They shouldn't forget that part simply because they've gotten UTAS. But it's something that we would follow up, you know, and see where this leads. There's also a very interesting story there that I saw. Of course, you know, we just left River State where we're talking about those who are going to be the 25 lawmakers. But on top of the screen, it says right there, the crude oil production price benchmark for 2024 budget realistic, says the NNPC. Many people have argued against that because they had a $77 benchmark, or, you know, projection. Currently, I think crude oil price has dropped to, I think it was 69 or 66, you know, dollars to the barrel. And there's already people who have fears that if your benchmark 77 is currently in the 60s, how do you know that it's going to get up to 77 by this time next year or even going forward? How are you sure it's not going to drop further? So it's scary. And if that's what the case is, then our revenue projections, it's impossible to meet those revenue projections if we're banking on $77 per barrel. And of course, we're not certain on improving on our oil production, you know, capacity.
Being able to meet our quota as well.
Exactly. So those for me are the two major stories here on the Daily Independent. But let's move to another paper and see what we can find this morning. The Punch this morning, it says their big story across the country. Rivers demolishes assembly. Pro-Fubara speaker declares defector seats vacant. Two of them reportedly ran back yesterday. It says there...
Even though it's, you know, we hear, I mean, I did see another report of one of them saying that it was fake news.
Yeah.
And nobody should carry that.
Yeah, well, we'll see. It says on the Punch, I think Neil, our correspondent, mentioned it this morning, so taking off from him. Government justifies assembly demolition, says the complex not suitable for legislative business. PDP directs legal advisor to sue defectors. Governor Fubara afraid of his shadow, says the APC. Okay. Also, NNPC Limited not transparent on subsidy dollar revenue, says the World Bank. We can also find on the Punch this morning, Kaduna bombing, military raises 8-man panel, villagers disown 33 billion naira suit. We will see how this, you know, also turns out, because we've said, you know, that we're not certain that the military should be the one investigating itself. There should be an independent panel that is set up to investigate what happened. Yes, with cooperation from the military, and of course that they must provide every bit of information that is required for you know, a proper investigation, not them investigating themselves. But of course, if they want to have an internal investigation, that's fine.
But will they make it will they make it public? Are we going to have access
it shouldn't
to
be
that
the
information?
official one. That's the point.
Yeah.
It shouldn't. If they want to have an internal one, they should,
Oh,
because
well,
it's expected that they should, to find out what exactly caused that error. You know, was it failure of information? Was it failure of intelligence? Was it failure of equipment? Something happened. So these are some of the things that they should do. NLC rejects TCN privatization, demands policy reversal. Top of the screen on the Punch this morning, gunmen kill woman, abduct 7 on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. There seems to be an increasing number of these cases. Tinubu sacks 5 aviation agencies heads, suspends NCAA boss. IPPIS, ASU hails federal government as FEC removes varsities and others. It's not a full confirmation that they're going to UTAS yet, but you know, it seems like it's progress. These are the stories on the Punch this morning. We already spoke about River State. Let's move on to other newspapers this morning. The Nigerian Tribune comes up next.
All right, on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, still talking about River State, legal issues arise as government demolishes assembly complex, and that's part of the conversation we had in the first half. Sitting venue is one of the issues. Quorum on front burner as 4 members witness Fubara deliver budget proposal in Government House. Speaker declares seats of 27 lawmakers vacant. PDP writes INEC demands fresh elections into vacant assembly seats. And the River State government has explained why they demolished assembly complex. INEC's failure to prosecute electoral offenders worrisome, according to the NBA. ECOWAS Parliament gives conditions to Niger military junta on page 23, I believe. Ekiti governor appoints 162 new aides. Very interesting. We're seeing more and more appointment of aides from the federal level to the state level.
Yes.
You know, anointing flows from the head down. This multiple appointment of aides, when we hear these numbers, we are asking, do we need that much to be able to run an effective government? Away from there, 3 feared dead as armed robbers attack banks in Ekiti. That's unfortunate. We're hoping no lives were lost in this robbery and that the perpetrators of this dastardly act be brought to book. Ondo Assembly declares Ayedatiwa acting governor. NLC rejects proposed plan to restructure TCN, says it portends greater danger. At the top of the paper, we have Sanwo-Olu presents 2.2 trillion naira budget of renewal. And the final story, FEC exempts tertiary institutions from IPPIS. OK's 6 billion naira contract awards under aviation. Tinubu swears in new ICPC PCSC chairman, removes FAN and NEMA bosses. These are the stories. Congratulations to tertiary institutions. Hopefully no more strikes. And like Osarogie said earlier, we hope that the government looks into the other areas as well. And in River State is still a developing story. As more updates unfold, we will be talking about these on the show. That's all that we can take this morning. Remember that we bring the newspapers to you every day on Breakfast Central. We'll be reviewing more papers, same time tomorrow. We'll go on a break, and when we come back, we'll be delving deep into Ondo politics. What exactly is going on there?